I'm Gab. He's not Jules. That's right. Making his debut, we have Sam Tighe. Welcome aboard, Sam. You're like a taller, bearded Jules.
Wow, that's quite the compliment.
That is a compliment. And I'm glad you're in because what a week we have. What a show we have. Manchester United now have a manager. How about that? Paris Saint-Germain lose a game. We had the League Cup semifinals. We have Inter extending their lead in Serie A. We have Munich 11 points clear at the midpoint of the Bundesliga season. There's news. But we have to start at one place, the Bernabeu. Xabi Alonso is no longer the manager. He's been, you can put whatever, he's departed the club. No, he was fired. Alvaro Arbeloa is now in charge. And in their first game, they lose the Copa del Rey to Albacete. But let's start with the big one. Conventional wisdom is that Xabi Alonso is gone because they're second in La Liga. They're 5 points back. They lost the Supercopa final to Barcelona. Conventional wisdom is that Xabi Alonso is a system. This is what Jules and I have been saying all year. I want to hear your take. He's a system coach, and this is a team that in recent years, certainly in the Galactico era, has really only had success with man management coaches who trust the players more and kind of let them do their own thing. I'm thinking of Ancelotti, of Zidane. Rafa Benitez had a nightmare. He would say he's a system coach.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, the coaches that tend to succeed at Real Madrid these days and in recent history have empowered player personality and almost empowered player power and let the likes of Vinicius Jr. and Jude Bellingham dictate what happens. Carlo was the master at putting some semblance of a structure in place and then allowing those very talented players to solve the problems on their own, which is exactly how these players are used to being treated and exactly how they want to be treated. They want to be given that autonomy. So Alonso came in with some pretty big ideas. We know that. He wants to press and counter-press. He wants to work from the front and backwards. Clearly, Madrid, at some level, bought into this at the higher levels because they've figured that after last year, they needed to change. Their style of play was looking quite outdated. Alonso was quite an extreme version, I thought, and over the course of the season, feels like he's tapered his ideas back a little bit as he's made concessions. Clearly didn't quite make enough concessions because he's bitten the bullet 6 months in.
I made the point that he kind of tried to thread the needle. Because look, Xabi Alonso is a really bright guy.
Yeah.
He was part of the Galactico era under Jose Mourinho. He gets it. I think he tried to thread the needle between the two. But there were obviously certain obstacles that he couldn't overcome. Although that said, I read a piece in The Athletic where they have one of those analytics and tactics boffins. He made the point that actually he was starting to take screenshots of the screen and shows average positions. And he says he was implementing some things. And actually Real Madrid's XG difference this season is the best in La Liga. It's substantially better than Barcelona's.
Sure. I mean, so I think Alonso tried to install certain things, but it's a big task here, right? You pick it up in the summer, which reportedly he didn't want to do. Didn't want to do the Club World Cup, wanted the fresh slate into pre-season. Don't know how that really works because the Club World Cup took quite a while. They got quite far. So how much of a pre-season would he have got anyway? So I don't really understand that logic. But what I think he managed to do was install the counter press at least, right? So as soon as you lose the ball, press for 6 seconds and try and get it back. I thought there were certain players that did that really well. Mastantuono was really good. Yeah. Tchouaméni was huge in the centre of the midfield, mopping up all those balls. And I watched him score several goals because Tchouaméni had intercepted and then 3 seconds later, the ball was in the net. The problem is it never got much further than that because installing a proper press with proper triggers is really hard. It takes time. It takes a full pre-season at least. And doing it with Vinicius Jr. and co.
I knew the V word was going to come out at some point.
But he's a huge character in this. He is a central part of this whole story. Regular
listeners know how I feel about him, know how Jules feels about it. How is he a big part of this story?
Well, it feels like all of the cracks of the Alonso era started to form when Vinicius Jr. decided to remonstrate with Alonso quite publicly during a Clasico win, which is supposed to be one of the highlights of Madrid's seasons for obvious reasons. And despite the fact that they were 2-1 up and the job seemed done and they just needed, 15 minutes to see out, why not freshen things up? Why not bring on fresh legs to close the ball down and to try and see out the game? I think that's fair logic, and Vinicius decided that wasn't acceptable. And the public remonstrating and challenging of Alonso there on the sideline was then not punished by the club. It was effectively backed by the club. and that put Alonso's position into serious danger. And you mentioned it earlier, right? Like he was the one who was supposed to be able to bridge the two worlds because he was a world-class player and a Madrid Champions League winning player and an up-and-coming top tactician. If he can't do it, who can? Who can do this? And Vinicius, I think, sowed the seeds here. This was the starting point, and it's only really got worse.
I think this feeds into a much broader issue when it comes to Vinicius, is that in a football club, but like in a company as well, right? You need to balance your assets. And here we have a club, and I'm sorry, but this goes back, there has to be accountability. This goes back to Florentino, because ultimately the buck stops with him, right? You can go all the way back. Resource allocation. I have a left winger who's exceptional, Vinicius, and I bring in another left winger, Kylian Mbappe, who may be even better. And I keep Vinicius, and I say, you guys sort it out. You guys work it out together. I know this season, obviously, Mbappe has adopted to play more centrally and whatever. And I go to the coach and I say, you figure it out. And it was Carlo Ancelotti last season. You can only do that to some degree. And when you see that it's not working, what do? You decide, and I go back to the Ballon d'Or, which traditionally people in England are like, Ballon d'Or, who cares? And like I tell you, I don't care about the Ballon d'Or. Jules cares about the Ballon d'Or a lot. However, it obviously, as Jules points out all the time, it matters a lot to the players.
And Real Madrid.
And in this case, Real Madrid made it seem even more important than the stupid ass award is. How? By saying, oh, no, you've won it. You've definitely won it. And then when they find out, no, he hasn't won it, then everybody at Real Madrid, men's team, women's team, Ancelotti, his dog, who were also nominated and might have won awards. No, we all stay home. We get off the private plane. All of a sudden, you have made this guy, Vinicius, feel as if he's Messi, Ronaldo, Maradona, and Jesus Christ all rolled into one. Even if you believe that is such an unhealthy, illogical way of managing your talent, especially when, and they knew this at the time, they knew Mbappe was coming. And that to me is kind of like the initial cardinal sin, even before you turn to Xabi Alonso. And I agree with you, Vinicius or Mbappe for that matter, neither of these guys, although Mbappe again has improved in that regard, neither of these people are exactly whirling dervishes off the ball. And so it's harder to press and it's harder for a system coach and whatever else. But you've already empowered Vini in this situation. And I also think he's maybe, and I just want to throw this to you, but anecdotally, I know far too many Real Madrid fans, I would say most of them, don't particularly like Vini. And from the start, they said, if the choice is Vini or Mbappe, I choose Mbappe.
Well, the choice is going to become Vini or Mbappe seemingly quite soon with this contract situation looming and the difficulties that the Vinicius situation is continually creating for Real Madrid. Like it's been humming for a couple of years, and Florentino Perez has done his best to almost avoid the conversation. Well, you're not going to be able to avoid the conversation for much longer when Vinicius comes to the summer and he's got 1 year left, and we've got this continued Saudi Arabia interest.
Is the Saudi Arabia interest real? This is the other thing. Sorry.
It's got to be real. I mean,
it seems to me constantly, all the in the know transfer markets experts, every club like, every agent said, even like the most kind of marginal players, like your your random Tyrone Mingses. Oh, sorry, just mentioning because you're a Villa fan. No, but
what a drive-by.
I'm not. This isn't real. What I'm about.
I was wondering, it's like, which player is he going to pick?
I'm going to pick a Villa. No. But if I'm Tyrone Mings' agent, and this hasn't happened, it's fictional. Maybe Tyrone Mings is a very bright guy. Maybe he doesn't even have an agent, right? It feels like everybody and their mom is like, oh, look, time to discuss my contract. Well, Al Hilal and Al Ittihad want me. And then in the papers, like, or if you're going to transfer a player to another club. Oh, well, sorry, Arsenal. You're going to have to pay $60 million for Eze because Al Ittihad is willing to pay $250 million for him. This kind of nonsense. People in Saudi are not stupid. The people in football, right? They know they've been ripped off. They were ripped off by this first generation of guys who've come in who haven't really moved the needle on it. Now, I'm not saying that Cristiano Ronaldo maybe was worth it, maybe he's not worth it, whatever metrics you choose to use. I think it's pretty obvious Karim Benzema perhaps wasn't worth it. Neymar, don't even get me started.
Yep.
But
Neymar.
this idea that there's always the offer from Saudi. He wants to go to Saudi, right?
Well, the point was he didn't want to go to Saudi, to be fair.
Of course not. Why? It's even Bruno doesn't want to go to Saudi.
But at this point, he really needs to hope that Saudi interest is real, because we are coming to an explosive head here, I think, even for Real Madrid, having backed him all of this time. And for the last, you're right, it does. It goes straight all the way back to the Ballon d'Or and making him bigger than the club, bigger than the sport almost in that sense, which is a very dangerous position to be in.
All right, the exit ramp for Vini in this one. And then we got to get back to coaches. But Vini's just such a fascinating story. We can help but talk about it. The exit ramp is Brazil and Uncle Carlo win the World Cup. He's the top goal scorer in the World Cup. And then he has an exit ramp. Although, of course, if that happens, knowing Real Madrid as we do, you know that then they'll just give him a gigantic contract and lock themselves into
there's nothing about Real Madrid that says to me, why don't we sell the golden ball winner of the World Cup? Because I'm pretty sure they buy those, they don't sell them, right?
Exactly. Going back to Arbeloa, and actually, no, let's stick with the player because Vini is part of this. This whole narrative, egos, superstars not wanting Xabi Alonso because he's more of an order guy and blah, blah, blah. There's that great story from Zlatan Ibrahimovic, so it must be true, that when he went to Barcelona, I think the club insisted at the time that everybody drive modest cars. And he thought it was stupid, but the idea was to keep everybody's ego in check, keep everybody down and whatever. So the easy narrative is, you guys are all overpaid egomaniac superstars. And you guys didn't want Xabi Alonso because Xabi Alonso didn't go and like pat you on the head the way Uncle Carlo did. I don't buy that. Jude Bellingham really pushed back very hard on it.
He did.
Maybe am I naive when I think actually these players aren't stupid, and some may be egomaniacs. The vast majority are not. These guys understand who Xabi Alonso is. They understand what he did. They understand, okay, we're playing a different way now. We can succeed within that system, right? When he was at Bayer Leverkusen, it's not like he had a bunch of just drones and rubbish robots executing tasks. He had Florian Wirtz, who's pretty good, right? Mm-hmm. So you can be a skilled player and star within. You can be a superstar and star within a Xabi Alonso system.
Look at Pep Guardiola's Manchester City and Barcelona over the last 15 years. I mean, it's not hard to find a bit of evidence for those players, is it? To say, hey, look what you can achieve with a bit of tactical discipline mixed with your natural talent. So I don't think they're stupid enough to not believe any of that.
So we're not really fully buying this narrative.
I think dressing rooms are really, really complex places. And when you have this many talented players together, and there will be some egos in there, of course there will be, then it becomes a difficult place to navigate. Madrid seems like the most difficult place to navigate in the history of football. If you go in with too hardline a stance too fast, I think you're going to be in trouble if the results start to drop. And I think we can clearly see a correlation here of when it started to derail, which is when the results dropped off, because it was only 2 months ago that Madrid were 5 points clear of Barcelona in La Liga. And then very quickly, after a very rough spell, they were 5 points behind. And it always follows results that these kinds of things really start to play out.
So this is where you made a really good point there. And this is where I struggle, because regular readers will know that I always go on about performance being more than results. Maybe it's because I've been too nerdulously influenced by people, but I believe performance influences is a better indicator of future results than current results, because in an individual game, you have variance and whatever else.
Yeah.
I also believe that a lot of football fans and the Madrid press don't necessarily feel that way.
Yeah.
And so while they've had some games where they were really bad in that run, they also had some games where they were pretty good in that run. And more importantly, before, they would have been 5 points clear, but they weren't playing well. And it was Mbappe papering and Courtois papering over cracks. And so I have to ask, if they had won the Supercopa, would Xabi Alonso still be in charge?
I think the answer is yes.
And that tells you that this is not the reason to sack the guy, because you don't sack or keep a coach based on one game. If he had won this, if you think he's doing a bad job, if you think he's mismanaging the egos, if you're dissatisfied with the results against Talavera and whatever else before Christmas, if the players are unhappy, winning one game Doesn't change that. Shouldn't change that.
It shouldn't, but you do know the club we're talking about, right? It is the most unique club in football with regard to this.
It is unique. Carlo Ancelotti, I remember him telling me, like, this is the only place in the world where you can be 4-0 up and winning, and your own fans will boo you.
Absolutely.
He says, like, I know because it's happened to me. I get the pañolada. I'm like, we're 4-0 up. I'm like, what? In terms of
this entire club doesn't make sense like that. I agree with you that performances are a better indicator, but this club doesn't agree with that. And this president doesn't necessarily agree with that. It's really all about the trophies. And that's why this week is one of the worst weeks in recent history for Real Madrid. Because the two trophies that they can genuinely, feasibly win this year, they have been knocked out of in the space of 5 days. Like, this is an absolute disaster. They have had to pull the plug on a project that clearly Florentino Perez, from the reporting I've read, wasn't fully on board with to begin with, but thought, okay, let's give it a go. My right-hand man has really, really fought for this guy. And I think based on the last year, maybe we do need to change a little bit tactically. At the first sight of it going wrong, they've pulled the plug. They've removed 6 months of progress. They've tried to pull the plug in time to maybe fix things ahead of the last remaining trophy win. And that's gone too.
Okay, if you want to be super cynical about this and get into hard truth territory with Real Madrid, the Florentino superstar-driven Galactico model that we've had for the last 10, 15 years, and which has yielded success. Yield success because in knockout competitions, and they've done better in the Champions League than anybody else, as we know.
Yep.
What makes the difference is superstars doing something special, goalkeepers doing something special, and they've had arguably the best goalkeeper in the world in the last 10 years.
Just picturing Gareth Bale overhead kicks and Thibaut Courtois magnificent saves on Mohamed Salah as you are speaking there.
A Gareth Bale who does nothing for a whole season and then comes up big and single-handedly wins the Champions League final, right? In the league, your bread and butter, blah, blah, blah. Okay, fine. But then you're competing against a club that is just about insolvent in Barcelona. And you know that no matter how much you stink it up, you'll finish second. And then people will get angry. But look, in the meantime, look, we won a Copa del Rey. And look, Vini's on YouTube. And look, like all these things put together, you're in the sports entertainment business and you're selling that. You're selling that to sponsors. You're selling that to fans. You are legitimately the biggest club in the world. Sorry, Man United fans, but I think deep down, even you agree. And there's nothing bigger than Real Madrid. And the Madridismo and this concept of showbiz, it works for you. Your fans are generally happy when you win Champions League titles. So, and it might also be why Real Madrid, they've won a bunch of league titles, but let's face it, it's inertia. Unless, Barcelona have engaged in more self-harm in the last 10 years. And still won titles, right? Mm-hmm. Atleti, up and down. Who knows what's happening with the transfers? Cholo Simeone. In the end, you're going to win your share of them. So, Florentino, going back to what you said, Florentino might say, what I was doing was working. And maybe it was less stressful, too. Mm. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm giving him a little bit too much credit and showing Florentino too much sympathy.
Well, ultimately, he is going to point to the very recent Champions League trophy haul and be like, the way I decided to do it and the managers I decided to appoint achieved this. Look what happened this season when I bowed to one of my most trusted people and decided to implement a different style. I mean, he probably has enough to point to there and say, I was right. I don't think he is, because you mentioned, the one thing you didn't mention there during your retelling of all of the Champions League glories they've achieved is, and you said it earlier, variance. It's a bit random. Champions League stuff is quite random.
Completely random.
Of course. And then I can point to a number of different things, not to discredit them, and that's not really what I'm trying to do here, but there's a number of points during these runs where I'm like, a bit fortunate, bit lucky, big moments, and a bit of variance. That's not something you can point to and go, this is sustainable success.
If Florentino were here, he would say, sorry, Mr. Tighe, why don't we count the number of seasons that I've been president of this club and we've done things my way, and the number of Champions League titles I've won in those seasons versus the number of Champions League titles that any other freaking club has won, right? Yeah. Versus other presidents, right?
Yep.
And then I'm going to laugh in your face because Florentino's right again. I'm being sarcastic.
And that's why we have to say, and I'm sure we agree, the most important man at Real Madrid is and always will be Florentino Perez. It's not Vinny. It's not Jude. It's definitely not Alonso. It's Florentino.
We have to talk about Arbeloa a little bit. Like you said, we don't quite know what to expect. We're going to naturally assume he's a company man. I thought it was interesting. that in this game, maybe he was trying to send a message, and obviously they had a bunch of people who are out and tired and whatever. But like I said, Sestero, Jimenez start. He brings in a couple other kids, Palacios. Presumably these are guys he worked with at Real Madrid B. Presumably when he was a child, he remembered La Quinta del Buitre and Michel and Butragueño being promoted, and Martin Vasquez promoted into the first team, and Manolo Sanchis, of course, and turning everything around. I don't know, but it sounds like you're sort of playing with fire when you instantly do that. And he got burned. I'm assuming we probably won't see this again because it's just Champions League and La Liga. They do not want to suffer the indignity of finishing third. Villarreal, if they win their game in hand, will be a point back. What do you expect his lineup to be? Is it going to be kind of the same as before, but just with slightly more loosey-goosey tactics?
I mean, I can imagine the conversation was, Alvaro, do you remember how we used to do it under Carlo? Yes. Can you do a bit more of that, please? Yes. You're hired. I really feel like they're just going to peel it back and try to effectively just combust on what they've tried to achieve this season and just go back to what they were. So
and they might win the Champions League, and Barcelona might.
It might be great, but obviously the first look we've had was terrible because this was a terrible game of football from Real Madrid's perspective. It was chaotic. It was nasty. It was a joke, really, towards the end. The last 8 minutes, so frenetic, and I appreciate that coming off the back of the news and the Supercopa loss, like, it's hard. The stadium was right up for it. They could sense something big happening. Fine. All that said, the nature of the goals they conceded, bad. The last one was horrendous.
Andre Lunin, yeah.
And it's terrible from Lunin on two parts because Hefte, the man who scores the goal, he takes one of the worst touches you will see in the next month or so in football, punts the ball 40 yards up the pitch by accident. Lunin should come and sweep that up. That's the first thing that should happen. That chance should never happen. Somehow, Hefte manages to end up getting on the end of the ball, takes a terrible shot that comes off Carvajal, and then curls or lobs the ball around the keeper. I mean, I don't think that's a particularly great finish. I think the keeper has completely lost his bearings. So, to me, it looked like a team unraveling. And that's exactly what this team is. It's unraveling.
That first shot that goes off Carvajal, it seems obvious to me. Like, he's absolutely winded. And he's like, oh, maybe I can hit it off his arm and you get a penalty. Carvajal, being a consummate professional, wraps his arms behind his back to avoid that.
It doesn't even hit his midriff, it's his shin.
Okay. There is a scenario where if you do that, if you settle down in defense, which will happen when the injured guys come back, Carvajal's already back. You've got a presentable back four, Tchouaméni, Camavinga. You wait for Mbappe to do something up front. You're going to be moderately good. In the meantime, they have to look for a manager to lead them next season. And I'm going to throw it out to you. I think secretly he's hoping, well, it worked with Zidane. Why won't it work with Arbeloa?
Okay,
but what do you think right now? What is the profile of the guy that they would bring in next season?
So the number one lesson we learned from this, and I say that acknowledging that we did not learn this from Xabi Alonso. We've learned this over the last 15 years. It's personality management, dressing room management among these players is 1A in what the next Real Madrid manager needs to be. You don't need to find the next genius tactician. You need to find a guy who can corral these guys into some semblance of order and keep a lid on it. So, unfortunately for Real Madrid, that market, I don't know if you've looked at the head coach market recently. I looked at it recently because Man United needed a manager. And I just ended up kind of with my head in my hands because it's pretty dry looking. Yeah. Ever since Jurgen Klopp effectively took himself off the market, I said, I'm pretty happy with this background Red Bull job. Where do you turn? I mean, what happened to the generation of coaches that were supposed to sort of enter this soft point?
Well, Harry Redknapp said he would be willing to manage West Ham for free, maybe willing to manage United for free.
Maybe
that is your
maybe. I genuinely don't know where you go because
but is it partly also kind of like the issue that we have? So if you're a coach, for you to get noticed and advance through the ranks, assuming you're not a Nepo baby, you have to do something tactically interesting and sophisticated with a lesser team. So then you get on the map and then a bigger team offers you a job, right?
Totally.
But the problem is when you go to the bigger team and you've got certain types of players, then it may not be worth your while. I'm thinking, Exhibit A, Andoni Iraola. I'm not suggesting he's going to be the next Real Madrid manager, nor that he should, right?
Yeah.
But you watch Bournemouth play with those guys running like maniacs into the ground, and it works, and it has a multiplier effect. But then when he gets to Real Madrid, he can't play that way.
Well, the problem with for that specific, and I know you're not saying Areola to Madrid. Areola doesn't even work to United for the play style issue, right? Because that's not how a dominant top club plays.
Or Thomas Frank, if you want to choose the man with two first names.
Sure, but that also doesn't scale. So not only does it not scale to Man United, it wouldn't scale to Chelsea, it wouldn't scale to City. So it definitely doesn't scale to Real Madrid, who are the most extreme example of manage these personalities, be successful. Fail to do so, be sacked within 6 months. So where do you turn to? Because Madrid are running out of men who can do this. And that's why they keep turning back to the same old men that used to do it well.
So I think after Carlo wins the World Cup with Vini, he may be available to come back.
Back in.
If not, you've got a guy with half of Carlo Ancelotti's DNA knocking about, his son Davide, right? I don't know.
I don't know.
Maybe great stone face Zizou is going to get bored eventually and come back. I don't know. But You're right. It's such a unique skill. What I would say, and obviously because I'm biased towards Ancelotti, I will bring this back to Ancelotti. This is a guy who was the ultimate system coach early in his career. That's what he learned under Sacchi. That's how he played at Parma. That's what cost him probably success at Parma and at Juventus. And then he became a man manager. He knows all the systems. He can do that. Mm-hmm. He can make you run around like a maniac and press. That's what he used to do. Maybe there is a system coach that can make the transition. And maybe they thought Xabi Alonso could make a comparable transition to what Ancelotti did. And maybe he still can. It's just going to be somewhere else. And that raises the point. If you're Arne Slot, and I hate to do this, Arne, I love you.
Yeah.
But anywhere else, all of a sudden, we've had, 3 managers sacked in 12 days by big clubs in Amorim, Maresca, and Xabi Alonso. No question, nobody has the cred and the pedigree and that Xabi Alonso does. All of a sudden, he's out there.
Yeah. If you're, particularly for Liverpool, right? If you're the Liverpool front office here, you've got to be stroking your beard in contemplation because.
And if you don't, if Manchester United were to call, I know he's got to pass at Liverpool and whatever. Yeah, sure. Would he do well at United?
I think so. Yeah.
I think he would be nailed on. I don't know if he would want to do it because of the history, obviously, and
also like it's not the best job in the world anymore. If there's 3 or 4 jobs coming up in the summer, and let's say United is there, fine. Let's say Liverpool might be there. I don't think Pep Guardiola will leave Manchester City this summer coming. I don't think that will happen. I think it's at least a year away. But let's say he did, and they decided they wanted Vincent Kompany, and Bayern Munich suddenly needed a manager. I think they'd go straight to Alonso. And if Alonso was there in 12 months or 18 months, I think that's what they do. So United might end up getting ousted from this conversation completely by just, quite frankly, a better offer. But Liverpool need to be across this. Like, this is a potentially golden opportunity. Not necessarily in the next couple of weeks, but over the course of this year.
All right, we've gone long, but guess what? It is Real Madrid we're talking about here. All right, enough Real Madrid. How about some quick hits instead? Manchester United have their interim manager through the end of the season.
Yay.
I'm excited. I'm hyped. I'm amped. Sam, Jules, and I have weighed in on Carrick time and again. I want to hear your take.
How you have strong takes about Michael Carrick? Because I really don't. I mean, the person stood in Manchester United's dugout could be any one of 16 different former players, and to me, they're all the same. In fact, they might as well just line all 16 up at this point, right? I don't think they had to choose between Carrick and Solskjaer.
You don't think Ole Gunnar Solskjaer would be substantially worse than Michael Carrick?
I think Carrick, Solskjaer, Ruud van Nistelrooy, Paul Scholes, they should all be stood on the sideline and they should all be shouting at the players, just do better, because that is probably what they're going to take from this. I'm personally excited to see a slightly different formation and maybe some of those midfielders come to life. I think Kobbie Mainoo will enjoy this, but ultimately, I don't think this is going to move the needle for them, and I don't think it's going to make them substantially better or substantially worse.
I have no idea. I don't follow the championship. All I can do is look at the table and know that he took over a team that were doing really badly in Middlesbrough, got them into the playoffs, then he finished 8th, then he finished 10th, and then they sacked him. That's all I know.
It's a tough landscape down there. It's a tough landscape.
What I do know, though, is that what you cannot have a plan and stick with it. do not let the commentariat
No.
tell you,
Don't
give him the job.
Yeah, and don't let us tell you to change formation.
Yes.
And don't tell us
absolutely.
directly that you're not doing something because of what we said.
Exactly.
Right. Arsenal beat Chelsea away 3-2 in the League Cup semi-final first leg. Gab, this was Liam Rossigna, another chance to look at him. What did you take away?
A bit like the FA Cup, I took very little because is it still Chelsea when there's no Moises Caicedo and there's no Cole Palmer and there's no center forward? I mean, when I
It was quite under strength, wasn't it?
When I see Mark Yu out there, and then on top of that, Robert Sanchez makes 2 massive mistakes on the goals. Now, this is not taking anything away from Arsenal. Arsenal, I thought, were good, but you don't learn anything because surely this isn't going to be what the team looks like when they're ready. I thought Esteval looked willing. Yu again reminds you why I don't think he's at this level, even though he's a Conference League top scorer. From Arsenal's perspective, every time I see Kai Havertz play, I get a little bit happier. But it's going to be tough to turn around. But no away goals in the League Cup, so stay tuned for the return leg.
Yeah, fair enough. Not getting much from Rossigna right now, but I thought it was a good night for Gyökeres, if we can just give him a little bit of credit because he's had a tough year.
Oh yeah, it was really hard to put that one away. Yes, I'm being sarcastic. Garnacho, that's what you meant. Garnacho, 2 goals. Sticking with Chelsea, L'Équipe in France report that Paris Saint-Germain are plotting a massive summer bid for Enzo Fernandez, who's supposedly upset at the sacking of his fellow Enzo Maresca. Sam, would this make sense?
Are you happy to be asking me this question rather than Jules, or sad? Would you like to see Jules' reaction?
Jules would absolutely. Jules is not an Enzo guy at all.
Okay.
So
I think I'm an Enzo guy. I think he's a talented player. I think if I was PSG and I was looking to zhuzh up the midfield and maybe change things up a little bit, and bear in mind, it's an amazing midfield, but at some point, you're going to have to change a little bit of it. Like,
why? Because they're old? No, because they're not.
No, because
Fabian Ruiz is getting a little bit older. There's nothing wrong with Zhao.
No, but you need to freshen things up every now and then, right? Even a good position group needs new stimulus and needs new freshness.
Like on it, there's no bad assets. There's only incorrectly priced assets, as my friend works at a hedge fund says. However, Enzo Fernandez, you have to assume, given what they paid for him, even with the amortization and his billion-year contract, is going to cost you north of 80 million.
Yes, for sure.
Why would you spend that on a guy like that when you can get somebody else? What is the logic here? There is no.
I would be.
Now, the reason we're talking about this, by the way, is L'Équipe, very well sourced. What it tells me is that maybe somebody within the club is turning the screws a little bit because they said, "Oh, Zhao's not playing great this year. Fabian Ruiz is getting a little older,
and he's just getting a new contract." Isn't it? I mean, it's not like they're lacking faith. I don't think they're lacking faith in their current crop, and I wouldn't want to roadblock Warren Zaire-Emery either because he has
been roadblocked enough.
Yeah, I mean, and he has to play right back quite a lot of the time to get his minutes, and okay, his development hasn't been linear, but I don't know. I guess the short list to improve PSG's midfield is quite a short list. Right, Francesco Pio Esposito scores late for Inter. It's another late goal in Serie A in what has been a really incredible title race, but Inter have now pulled a bit clear, Gab. 6 points. Are they pulling away for sure?
No, because if Milan win their game in hand tonight, they'll be 3 points back. But look, I didn't think they played badly against Lecce despite the late goal. Lecce came out there, parked the bus. They do that very well. He mixed things up. Zielinski is not Çalhanoğlu in midfield, and he showed it again. Lautaro got the night off. Hey, I'm good with that. 3 points. They could have scored earlier. They ended up scoring late. Sam, we're not done. We have more quick hits. Manchester City win their League Cup semi-final, beating Newcastle away 2-0. Sam Pep is furious about that endless VAR check over the disallowed Semenyo goal, which ultimately wasn't that relevant. But hey, can you cheer him up?
Yeah, I'll cheer him up by saying that it wasn't relevant for a start. They won 2-0 regardless. So I understand that 6-minute wait was really irritating, but City came through this game regardless. This is one of the hardest games in the English calendar, Newcastle away. It's really difficult to play against this team in that stadium, and they did have to ride their luck a little bit in terms of chances created, but they came through it. The most important part for me is the nature of the team that came through it.
Oh, you're going to go all Kusanov, Ake Lane on me.
For sure, because the last time Pep changed the entire team, do you remember the Leverkusen fiasco in the Champions League?
When he glitched.
And we basically got to the point where he has 14 players he can trust to use his new system. and no one else. Well, now we get a second bite of the cherry, and there's a bunch of players here. Semenyo to start with has only been a Man City player for like a week, but Max Allain, Kuzanov, James Trafford in goal played really well. There's a bunch of players here, Nico O'Reilly, who have not been through this journey of winning trophies with Man City, but have now stepped up on a really important occasion and shown that Pep has a bit of depth. So if I was him, I'd be delighted.
Not just any important occasion, but the League Cup semi-final.
For sure, absolutely. Right, well, guess who will not be winning the treble this year, Gab? Paris Saint-Germain. They are out of the Coupe de France. They lost 1-0 at home to Paris FC of all teams.
Yes, it's their second Parisian derby in just a few weeks. They won the first one. This would be a day for Jules to be here, but instead you'll have to do. Obviously, Paris FC for a while, and I love mentioning this. I probably won't mention it again because people get bored with it. But they and Paris Saint-Germain were the same club. They merged and then they split. All happened in the 1970s because they have a ton of history. I think were they formed about 100 years after the club you support, if I'm not mistaken?
Yeah, 1874 is Villa. So
close enough.
There you go. Yeah,
yeah, you have nearly 100-year head start. But Paris Saint-Germain, I thought, dominated this game. They were undone by Jonathan Ikone, who started his professional career where?
PSG.
There you go.
He was one of
Paris
many
bread, whatever
products.
else.
Yeah.
But well done to Paris FC. They hung in there to defend, and I thought their game plan worked and makes for a little change in the Coupe de France. Yeah. Now let's go to the Africa Cup of Nations. Sadio Mane scores the only goal as Senegal get past Egypt. Sam, when you have Mo Salah and Omar Marmoush up front, and you don't actually make any attempt on goal against minute 84, it's not a good sign.
It's not a good sign, but Gab, I wasn't remotely surprised. I've been watching Egypt at the Africa Cup of Nations for at least a decade, and I feel like every single game I ever watch is the exact same. They have always been very reactive. We don't want the ball. We'll just punt the ball into the channel. We'll give it to Salah. We'll give it to Marmoush. Previously, it was we'll give it to Trezeguet. They were strong centre-backs, hard-working midfielders, and let's counter-attack. It's always been the way they've played.
In the last game, I thought they were more expansive.
But nowadays, I mean, Salah's powers are waning. He can do less with those balls. He can do less with those half opportunities. And if you're relying on that, then obviously the game plan is going to fall apart a little bit. And okay, they might have been a bit better. But when they play against a team like Senegal, with the quality and with their play style, because they are more on the ball focused, this is how Egypt are going to play. Unfortunately for them, as Salah has hit the decline, Egypt's game plan has also fallen down a little bit. And this was just one step too far for them.
I think he's still just probably the most, or one of the two most technically gifted players on the pitch. I don't want Sadio Mane to come to my house, so I would want him to get the ball into the final third more often, so he can do something.
Yeah,
and that didn't happen
for sure. Right. Well, Senegal will face Morocco in the final. They overcame Nigeria on penalties. There weren't many goals in these semis, were there?
No, not many shots either. Look, people know I am a Nigeria fan when it comes to teams in Africa. So disappointed. They had 2 shots in the space of 120 minutes.
Yeah.
There was more of a flurry in extra time, I thought. Osimhen came close to having a chance, and then they took him off. He was clearly carrying an injury. Weird, you go into penalties. It was like minute 119. Like, would you go into penalties without your penalty taker?
Just wait 2 minutes. Yeah.
Maybe he had an injury, would let him take a penalty. Well done, Morocco. This was not easy because Nigeria are a good team. I am sad. I'm not going to hide it because I won't get to see them at the World Cup either, obviously.
And they've had a really good tournament, haven't they? Really
they
good
have.
Tournament.
But it just makes it worse because you're reminded of what happened in World Cup qualifying. But Morocco, again, the class of the tournament, patient, pick their spots, and I am hyped and amped for the final. Morocco against Senegal. Back to the FA Cup. Liverpool are through after beating Barnsley 4-1. But Sam, this game felt a lot closer until the final minutes.
Thanks to Dominic Szoboszlai. Yeah. Barnsley's best forward. I mean, what a night for him. He scored an absolute screamer early on. Like, what a strike. The commentator said you can't hit a ball better than that. And usually when they say that, they're wrong. But this time they might have been right. It was an exquisite strike. And then this back heel that he tries that tees up the Barnsley goal. I mean, I just don't understand what he's thinking. It doesn't matter that he got it wrong. The problem is he tried it in the first place. So yes, it looked a bit tight. And bear in mind, Barnsley hit the post in the first 30 seconds of this game too. So this was tighter than the scoreline suggests.
At least Mo Salah's coming back, maybe.
Yeah, well, maybe it'll help. I don't know. We'll see. Who knows? Right. Over to Serie A. Napoli are held at home by Parma. 0-0. Gab, 3 straight draws. They are slipping behind, clearly.
Yeah, they had a goal disallowed. Hoyland, a little tight. Parma set out to defend. Carlos Cuesta. It's even though he's Spanish, it's what he does really well. He just sits there and defends. He's like a little extreme Arteta clone, except without the attacking part.
Some would say Arteta lacks the attacking part too.
They miss so many players right now. I'm not going to fault them. But yeah, it does mean they need a big run and they need Inter to drop off. A big run when De Bruyne and Zambangisa and all those guys come back.
Yeah.
And Antoine Griezmann free kick is Atletico Madrid, a 1-0 win away at Deportivo La Coruña in the Copa del Rey. Sam, so much for the old guy being phased out. I just feel like they need him, especially Alvarez doesn't do anything away from home.
Yes, the Alvarez away from home yips are very strange, aren't they? It took me a while to pick up on this, but in place of that, you are going to need someone to come in and assert the standard.
And if it's not the only living Sorloth in captivity, it's got to be him, right?
It's got to be Antoine Griezmann. I'm sure he's not happy with the sort of bit part role that he's playing these days, but at the end of the day, for Diego Simeone, what a player to be able to call upon. And getting through in the Copa del Rey, not as easy as it looks, apparently, Real Madrid. And what an opportunity for everybody still left in.
Well, especially, with Real Madrid out of the competition. And you imagine this is going to be Barcelona's third priority at this stage. I think you're in a really good place.
Yeah, absolutely right. Sticking with Atleti, they've sold Conor Gallagher to Tottenham for £35 million, reportedly. Is this the player that unlocks Thomas Frank's midfield?
So, for me, the single biggest thing this tells me is that Spurs are likely not to sack the man with 2 first names for the foreseeable future. Because Conor Gallagher seems to be the epitome of a Thomas Frank player. He's a guy who brings so much energy. He runs around. Jules, not a Conor Gallagher fan at all. On the ball, not as a person.
You just listed his strengths and you said energy, runs around. He's got to have more than that.
He has more than that. But, I mean, you really have Bergvall who does that. You have Bentancur who supposedly does that. Polina doesn't run as much, but he's got more of a physical presence. To me, it seems like what this team needed was more quality and creativity. And because Xavi Simons isn't offering it. And I know Kulusevski's going to be back sooner than Madison and whatever.
That doesn't fix the issue either. What they need is a ball progressor from deep. They need someone that can feed the ball through to get the ball to the attackers, surely. Gallagher's not that player. Neither is Palhinha, neither is Bentancur, neither is Bergvall, neither is Archie Gray. What are they doing?
Ball progressor.
Why are they buying loads of midfielders and they're not fixing the position brief, the role that they need?
Yeah. I don't know. Fabio Paratici is gone. I think Thomas Frank views football in a different way. And I'm not saying he's a Thomas Frank guy because he's not a sterling passer or ball progressor. But I think it does show that he fits that mix. He'd do great at Brentford. Bayern stop Köln. The Goats. How about that? Away 3-1 to go 11 points clear at the halfway mark after going a goal down. Sam, are you ready to crown them?
Yes, I am. Are you ready? I mean,
should do?
I'm good with it. Let's get the trophy out now. I mean, this Bayern Munich team is so much better than everything else in the Bundesliga, despite the fact that we've seen Leverkusen take some good steps under Kasper Hjulmand, despite the fact that we've seen some promising signs from RB Leipzig. There's nothing close to this Bayern team.
And you know what? Speaking, Jamal Musiala and Alfonso Davis are coming back.
I know they're not.
It's just the absurdity in it.
I know.
It's
incredible. Getting Lennart Karl to come in and score a few goals here and there, just a perfect icing on a great cake so far. I mean, Company has done an amazing job.
But you know what's funny? I'm sorry, I sense a little rant here, but Jules has heard this a million times. I'm going to expose you to it too. If you go back through history, and there have been some dominant teams in the past, it wasn't normal for teams to rack up, 90 points in a 38-game season, 85 points in a 34-game season. It just, let alone win the league 11 years in a row. It just didn't happen, right? And now we take it as normal. Now it's entirely normal. Like, this is normal that one team should go out and be so much better and have so many more resources than everybody else. And then we celebrate, look, aren't they great?
Well, that's why the Leverkusen title win a couple of years ago was so special, because it was a break from the established norm. And that's why we celebrated it so much, despite the fact that deep down, we don't care, right?
Yeah, it reminds me of that song your ancestors probably used to sing. I'm gonna stereotype you as being of Irish descent. You know the song about when they sing "How bravely you faced one with your 16-pounder gun." It's kind of like that, right? But whatever.
I am of Irish descent. Well done.
Oh, sorry, it's you.
No, that's me. Juventus beat up Cremonese 5-0. This was an absolute slapping, wasn't it? Jonathan David on the score sheet once again. Is this vindication for Luciano Spalletti?
He believed in David. He didn't sign David. David was signed by Damien Kamali on a free transfer. They made it seem as if Jonathan David was just some sort of active, stinking turd, Canadian turd landed there and like the worst signing in history.
What?
And now all of a sudden, no. And then the guy takes a penalty, misses the penalty. Then again, he's bad for missing the penalty. Spalletti's stupid for making him take the penalty. And now you've seen Jonathan David can actually play. And more encouragingly for Juve, they're playing some nice football.
Yeah.
Juve fans are learning, hey, look, I can play attacking football and actually win. It's a slow burn. There's so many things that can go wrong. I think they're probably still behind others. But this is an important win for Spalletti also because so many Juve fans, all they care about is results. They don't look beyond 12 months down the road. They don't care about performances. So if you can get the two together, and I say this as somebody who does not naturally like Spalletti. He's a bit like the Italian Unai Emery. He's brilliant, but I don't quite like him. But I got to admit, he's really good. Borussia Dortmund spanked Werder Bremen 3-0 as Serhou Guirassy comes off the bench to score his first Bundesliga goal since Halloween. Sam, did it take dropping him for Serhou to get his mojo back?
And it took a colossal defensive error, I think. I mean, that's one of the easiest goals he will ever score. So what a way to get back on the score sheet. And everyone needs a confidence booster every now and then, Gab. Very, very, very nice. Very nice of Dortmund.
Seeing Fabio Silva and his giant hair play ahead of you, I think that would have also been a big motivator here.
For sure, yeah. It's been a tough time for Guirassy, but hey, you take them as they come. Hopefully a few more now. Okay, back to Italy. Torino get a last-minute winner from Emirhan Ilkan and beat Roma away 3-2 to knock them out of the Coppa Italia. Gab, Gasperini, this is a blow.
I don't know that it is. I don't know that he cares. Gasperini's such a weirdo that I think he's so focused on getting them back up the league. You look at the lineup, he put out there, El Shaarawy at age 40, freaking Leon Bailey up front at center forward. You had other players who were on the bench. And you wonder, did he think he could easily beat Torino? Does he not think that he has a squad to compete in Europe and in Serie A at the same time? Because obviously he still hopes to get them in the Champions League, right? They're 1 point behind, 1 point out of third place, right? So I'm not saying he planned the defeat, but he said, let me chuck some of my reserves in, see what happens. And we also have to point out, big shout out to somebody named Antonio Arena, who is Australian of Italian descent. 16 years young, coming off the bench, scoring a header. And if you watch the highlight on YouTube, normally when you get the 16-year-olds out there, either they're sort of freakish man-child giants, and so when they score headers, you kind of expect it, like a young Erling Haaland. This guy's not that. Most of the time when they score, it's like, the little quick guy runs away into space and scores. No. This guy is he's not a giant, but the authority with which he took that header, that bodes well. I have no idea if we'll see him again because, of course, sticking with Roma, they brought in another striker. Daniel Malin on his way. Sam, you're a Villa fan. What kind of a player are they getting? And also, are Villa going to get somebody in as a result of Malin's departure?
Yeah, it's interesting you refer to Daniel Malin as a striker. That's how he refers to himself.
He's a forward.
That is not how I would not call Daniel Malin a pure number 9, or at least not in Premier League terms. He is a strange player. He has some very distinct skill sets. I talk about him in the same way like I talk about Brennan Johnson. When we talk about Brennan Johnson, we say he's quick and he gets to the back post and he scores. And then you run out of strengths because there aren't that many others. Marlon is quick.
Thomas Frank feels the same way.
Yeah, he's quick. Marlon is quick. He is a ruthless and instinctive finisher with good shot power and nothing else, basically. He doesn't have a position. Like, he's not a striker. He's not a right winger. He's not a support. Like, he's just someone that kind of exists.
Ideal
and puts the ball in the back of the net. So my question
in a 3-4-2-1.
Well, my question to you there would be, would that work for Gasparini's system? Because presumably he'd be a bit better supported and maybe just tuck in off the striker and play.
So, okay, remember, this is when you wonder about, what they used to call joined up thinking here.
Oh, yeah.
Because obviously Roma were heavily linked with Joshua Zirkzee,
Yeah.
who, when you were describing Malin there, I was thinking to myself, who's the opposite of that? Oh, look, it's Joshua Zirkzee, right?
Yeah,
in the sense that, he doesn't score many goals,
No.
but he is very technical and a very good passer. So I'm like, which did you
Marlon would ideally be involved in the game as little as possible.
Right.
Just the final action is fine. Yeah.
So I'm curious to see. I would assume it makes more sense the way this would make sense to me if I'm a Roma fan is in the 3-4-2-1, if he's not your one, but if maybe you've decided that Dovbyk and Ferguson, one of the two is allowed off the naughty step and you keep him as your center forward and maybe he plays behind with Matthias Sule on those nights that Paulo Dybala takes off, of course, which are many. Maybe that's the logic here. His scoring record's good.
It's good. It's good. He's done a lot with a little, but the reason it's been little for him, I mean, we're talking about 7 Premier League starts here in a year after a £20 million move. He got left out of the Champions League squad for Villa last season. He's never been an integral part of this team. He doesn't play any of the positions in Unai Emery's system. And it's a year to the day, basically. One day past that he joined Villa. So it's been a very short stay. He has never fit. I hope it goes better for him at Roma. Although I will say the Villa fan base, they actually did take a little shine to him for some reason. I'm not totally sure why. The second part of your question, will Villa act now? They have to, because they have inadvertently found themselves in a glorious position of whether or not you think it's a title challenge or not, I don't care. The point is, they're like 11 to 13 points ahead of all of their challengers.
11 to 13 is kind of the number of players they actually have, right?
Precisely, yeah. It's actually just gone down to 12.
Tammy Abraham.
They've got a great buffer now. They've got an amazing opportunity to go and potentially win the Europa League and sustain a top 4, top 5 challenge, a successful one. But it only works if you have more than one striker. Tammy Abraham, I think, and I say I think because I haven't seen him play for at least 6 months because I don't watch Turkish football. I think he'd be a good fit for Emery's system because his ability to run the line, his ability to play back to goal, these are important focal point skills that a 9 needs to have. The ones that Ollie Watkins has, the ones that Marlon does not. So theoretically, this makes sense. However, you will have seen him a little bit more recently than me. And I hope he can still score goals.
I watch a lot of Besiktas. No, he's done well at Besiktas. If he's fit, he gives you a physical presence. He gives you a lot of energy. He's an intelligent player, I think, and he's a hungry player.
Yeah.
So in that sense, I think it can definitely make sense. You need to make the numbers work because obviously, as you know, Villa are in big trouble with UEFA. It's a 1 year.
They're working in a settlement agreement. Yeah, they're working under cost controls.
Right. So. If you don't hit your cost control, you are banned from Europe.
For sure. Yeah.
Simple as.
But there's pressure on Villa to churn players here and recycle players because you need to start pumping the balance sheet.
That's the magic. That's how you make money.
So they're just like moving Marlon on because they're like, yeah, someone bid for him. Let's do it because it just puts a positive number on the balance sheet. So that's clearly part of this equation. But
gotta love the magic of amortization.
Oh, for sure. It's a shame, isn't it? Okay. Italy boss Rino Gattuso wanted a mini training camp in February to prepare for the World Cup playoffs in March. Gab, he is not going to get it.
No, he's not going to get it because, too many fixtures and for TV commitments, we need to play Friday and Monday and whatever else. I wish the Italian league had been a little bit more conciliatory towards the FA. I think this really matters. I don't think they understand how much it matters, that there is a serious risk that Italy will miss out on the World Cup on its 3rd consecutive World Cup, I should say, despite having won the World Cup more times than any other nation in the history of the universe, with the exception of Brazil, of course.
Yes.
I should turn around because Germany, of course, also say that they've won 4. So I should say only Brazil have won more World Cups.
This stat is falling to pieces as you talk.
No, well, look, says the man from the country that has won one more World Cup than Albania, and that was according to Germans by cheating. So I'm going to leave that to one side, but I didn't hear that, right? And now you have a German running you. So no, I find it disappointing that they couldn't make this work for the TV companies didn't come together with the league and find a way to do this. Would it have moved the needle? We'll never know. I just hope he doesn't use it as an excuse. Arsene Wenger wants to introduce a, quote, daylight rule, which means players only offside if he's entirely beyond the defender. The FA and UEFA oppose this, and so does former assistant referee Darren Cann, who, again, unless you're a refereeing nerd, hi Dale Johnson, or worse, an assistant refereeing nerd, you might not know who this man is.
Who are those assistant referee nerds? That's
People
what
who are really into that. People have a fetish. No, he's probably the only assistant referee anybody's ever heard of in this country.
Yeah.
And he's been at World Cups, highly respected, and he gave a very good take, Sam, about why this is a really bad idea.
Yes, I'm going to quote him. From an assistant referee's point of view.
Which is all that matters here, because these are the people who hold the flag up. Yeah.
For sure. If you are looking across the line, it is much easier to see a bit of an attacker's torso or leg sticking beyond the defender rather than looking for a tiny sliver of daylight between them. I believe it would mean more VAR decisions, more delays, and it would make it much harder for an assistant referee to judge if a player is offside. I would also say it is probably the death of the high line. Like, how would a high defensive line work in this scenario? I'm sure you've all seen the screenshots of what would constitute onside in this scenario. And it's two men running in opposite directions, but their heels are touching. So it's, I don't really get how football would recover from this. I fear how it would change the game tactically. I fear it would introduce a ton of low blocks. I think it would take out a lot of the innovation in pressing. And I think it would be absolutely terrible.
It would be the end of Hansi Flick as well.
The end of me watching football.
No, it would make for bad football.
That, but you know what I mean.
But also, and look, Wenger says, "Oh, this way we get more goals." None of us is 6 years old. Well, some people might be, but 6-year-olds obviously are. But it's not exciting. I need the ball over the top, man running onto it, the keeper beating the keeper. If it starts happening all the time, and there's a real risk that it would happen all the time with this, if people keep a high line, which is why they won't, and they'll go back. This isn't entertaining. This is stupid.
Also,
right?
I'm perfectly happy with the number of goals on average in games. Perfectly happy. And I'm perfectly happy when that number goes from, let's call it a 2.5 average. Perfectly happy when we get a bit of a barn burner occasionally and someone wins 4-3, because that's a delight. I don't want 4-3, 4-3, 4-3, 6-5. I'm happy with where we are right now. I hate this proposal, and it sounds like you're not on board with it.
No, so I hate it too. And I'll say this, since you mentioned the average number of goals in a match, and I'm still waiting for some big brain mathematical data science guy to explain to me why this is the case. So the average number of goals in a game in just about every league in the world for the last 40 years has been between 2.5 and 3. Sometimes it goes a little lower. Sometimes in some leagues it's a little bit higher. Like in Holland, historically it's been higher. But if it's higher, it's like 3.1, 3.2. Mm-hmm. Why is that the case? Is it just that 22 players running around on a pitch that size over a large period of time? It's always going to be between 2.5 and 3. I mean, is it physics? Is it the ball moving around? Nobody can seem to explain this to me in a mathematical way. If you're out there, please come to me, find me on Twitter. I genuinely want to know.
I mean, the game has been the same for a long time. The pitch dimensions are roughly similar. It's the same number of people. It's the same amount of time in a game. If you changed 90 minutes to 80, this would all change. To 60, it would all change. So the fact that it's been such a consistent sport in terms of how long it's played for and by how many people will naturally influence the fact that that number of goals per game is roughly similar. I'm not the boffin you're asking for. I'm just giving my attempt.
No,
but there's my take.
Appreciated.
Gab, Josh Carvalho was one of a handful of professional footballers to come out as gay a few years ago and is now in non-league football here in England. In an Instagram post, he says homophobia drove him out of Adelaide United back in Australia.
So, look, I'm in no position to judge whether this is the case. Adelaide United, they deny this. I think what is undeniable, he went from his first couple seasons where he was playing regularly, and then the last couple seasons, he wasn't. That's undeniable. Equally undeniable is that after those last 2 seasons, when he wasn't playing as much, it's not like he found another club in Australia. He came over here. He found non-league clubs. He's at a non-league club called Stamford right now. He was at some other non-league club that I'd never heard of in the Northern Premier League before that, where he made a couple appearances. So it's also possible that part of the reason he's gone is his football declined, his quality of his football. I don't know. Did it decline because he found an unwelcoming environment? I don't know. Certainly Australia, I think you had out gay rugby league players in Australia 40 years ago. Australia would seem to me one of the more welcoming environments towards it. In the men's game, obviously, women's game is a different, very different story. It's sad if somebody feels that he's in that position. Maybe there is a lesson to learn. I hope he gets to play football, and I hope he's happy with Jakub Jankto retiring. As far as I know, there certainly are no out gay men in top league, in active professional football, in top league, in top flight football. Anyway, there was a guy, I think, who was in MLS, who's now not in MLS or whatever. And you just want to have an inclusive, welcoming environment where people who love the game, regardless of their sexuality. I mean, the world has moved on. It does not, these are the standards in men's football, they do not reflect the standards in the world, in the workplace in general. Not saying homophobia is eradicated, it isn't, but it should reflect what is happening in real life in that specific country. And clearly it doesn't. Sam, it's your debut on the show and you're a Villa fan. So I can't pass up the opportunity to ask you about Harvey Elliott. I'm a big fan. He's one of my favorite players. Arne Slot, who I also like, doesn't seem to like him very much, which is why he sent him on loan to Aston Villa. Unai Emery, who I have massive respect for professionally, but I think he's a bit of an oddball as a person, shares Slot's view because he never plays the guy and he's on loan at Villa. Where do you stand? What happened?
Yeah, bad news for us because you like him, I like him, but the men in charge don't seem to. Although we will caveat that with regards to Unai Emery, because from what I've taken from the situation, there wasn't total agreement between manager and recruitment staff and Monchi, Emery and Monchi on whether or not Harvey Elliott should be signed. At the time, it was right late at the window. Villa hadn't done much business. They were kind of shopping around in the last couple of days. There were big links to Lucas Paquetá, and we know that Emery does tend to. I know it was not a good idea, but you're looking at me like
it's more the fact that y'all don't have any money. You're under a settlement agreement with Villa. And what? Like, I think and you think you're going to go sign Lucas Paquetá for 60 million
it was about 50,
as opposed to Harvey Elliott for 0?
Yeah, I think this may have been the message passed back down to Emery. But Emery likes experienced players. He thinks they're more trustworthy. He thinks they're more consistent. Obviously, Villa financially are not in that position. And hey, look at the business so far in January. It proves the point because they're signing 17 and 19-year-olds for lower sums so we know what the situation is there. But it seems like Elliott came regardless of whether or not Unai Emery wanted him, but we know that if he hits 10 appearances, they have to pay about £35 million for him. And Emery has decided that money could be better spent elsewhere. So Harvey Elliott is stuck on 6 appearances in all competitions, and he hasn't been seen for months. He's trapped. And what should have happened is on the 1st of January, these two clubs should have got their heads together and decided whatever financial penalty is applicable between them, cancelled this loan, or taken the obligation out and allow Harvey Elliott to play 15 minutes at least off the bench multiple times and play some football because he must add some value to the team.
This is what I struggle with because Olabe and Michael Edwards and Richard Hughes, 2 of those 3 I know personally, are very smart people.
Very smart people.
So I'm sure they did sit down and said, is there some kind of solution here? My solution would be bring him back. He's not allowed to play for anybody other than Liverpool or Villa this season.
Or a calendar year league like MLS, or he could go to Japan technically.
But, yes, okay. He could go to Mauritius on holiday too. But the reality is there is a solution here. I think Liverpool need him. And you go to Arne Slot and say, hey, big boy Arne, you had this guy around. It's not like you locked him in the toilet while you were here. You just didn't start him. Especially if you're going to start playing this diamond or whatever you're going to do going forward with Isak out and unsure of Salah, Elliott can cover multiple positions for you. We need him.
Yeah.
And he's free. And he's our player.
Yeah, because he's definitely free because we already have him.
The whole point.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, look, I think there's a case for Liverpool to utilise him as a squad member. I think there's a case to take the obligation out of the loan and for him to become a proper squad member for Villa. I see 2 ways out. I'm just surprised that we're halfway through the window and neither of those routes have been taken. But I guess we'll see. We've got 15
probably negotiating.
We've got 15 or so more days left. I'm sure it's complicated, more complicated than I could imagine. Gab, according to reports, Saudi Pro League's Al Hilal could soon be sold to Al Walid bin Talal. Tell me why this is important, please.
So Al Walid bin Talal, of course, is a Saudi billionaire. the reason this is important is that the whole boom in Saudi came about because the Public Investment Fund of Saudi Arabia, which is the country's sovereign wealth fund, they essentially took over 4 big clubs: Al Hilal, Al Ittihad, Al Ahly, and
Al Nasser.
And Al Nasser, of course, with Cristiano. And they pumped a lot of money in there. And as part of the effort, the thinking was, okay, we're going to make the Saudi Pro League really big. We're going to kickstart it with essentially the government's money, because that's what a sovereign wealth fund is, the people's money. But hey, all you other billionaires, big companies, you guys go and buy in, and you guys buy other clubs, and so we can have a proper league. Hasn't really happened to the degree that they wanted to.
I feel like 3 or 4 have been picked up.
That's right.
League, yeah?
You've had
Neom has been picked up.
Neom, you've had Aramco, but Neom again is very much a PIF project,
Right.
I think,
Okay.
indirectly. Saudi Aramco.
Al Qadsiya, they're splashing money.
Yeah, that guy. I don't know how rich that guy is, but they are spending money. So it is happening a little bit, but you want it to continue. You can also be very cynical about this and say, hey, if I'm Al Walid bin Talal, I'm a very rich guy from Saudi, but in the end, MBS is the absolute ruler, de facto absolute ruler of Saudi. So if he asks me to do something, probably a good idea for me and my businesses to go and do it. Otherwise, I don't want to end up at the Ritz-Carlton where all his cousins ended up a few years ago, right? So it's still not like, to me, this model will work, and I'll be convinced when you start getting people who have no ties with the Saudi government saying, hey, this is a great business opportunity for me. I'm going to go and spend $500 million or whatever it is to buy this club. But it is interesting that there's movement at this stage. Sam, I have to ask you about the 7-match ban Swindon Town's Ollie Clark got for, quote, highly invasive, unquote, and, quote, violating, unquote, acts against 2 Cardiff City players on the pitch. This was a while back. I don't want to let my imagination go to some really dark places, but it already has.
Yeah, and you're making my
What did he do? Yes,
to...
I want you to look. I'm not English. I don't understand what you guys do. So
this is my debut show. You know that.
I know. So explain to me what highly invasive things do you do on the football pitch to each other?
As a culture.
What has he done?
I don't know.
What do you think he's done?
I don't know. I suspect he may have used his fingers. 1 or 2.
Put his finger in the other guy's ear? Mouth?
Lower.
Nose?
Lower.
Okay.
Lower, possibly.
Right.
What do you think?
I maybe played amateur proctologist. I don't know.
Yeah.
But what I find hilarious, and by the way, there is a case of this before. I think it was in the Copa America involving a Chilean player. I don't want to name him because I'm not 100%. I'm 99% sure I know who it was.
This rings a bell for sure.
I find it hilarious that they can't just, they're so like stuffy and like, oh no, we have to say highly invasive and violating rather than saying what actually happened. The funny thing is this guy said it was accidental. I'm like, how do you accidentally twice invade somebody's private parts? That's really difficult to do.
It is, especially given presumably this was like at a corner or something, and you get quite close to people. There's a lot of pushing and shoving, and maybe some other things that are happening too. No. I mean, this guy's 33 years of age, and I assume that he has played more than one football game at this point. So I think he knew what he was doing. I would not say it was potentially accidental.
And before you speculate and wonder, as I have, maybe these guys were actually into it. They were not into it because they went. Both of them complained to the referee. One of them said he was so upset he couldn't talk, which makes you wonder how he actually said it. But anyway, I'm done reading FA disciplinary reports.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, look, you may or may not have noticed, but Microsoft have signed a back of shirt sponsorship deal with Manchester United for all of their cup games. Unfortunately for them, that is not looking like great value for money, is it?
No, it's to do with it's Microsoft's AI product, Copilot.
Yeah.
And of course, they ended up only getting 2 games out of it because they lost in the League Cup and then they lost to the FA Cup. Incidentally, Copilot in the news again recently in your neck of the woods as a Villa fan. Remember the whole story about Maccabi Tel Aviv were supposed to play Villa.
Yep.
The police recommended that they should be banned. There was something to do about it. They used some false information. Apparently they did because they relied on Copilot to find the history This is reportedly, by the way, to find the history of Tel Aviv fans away.
The chief of police has confirmed this is what has happened. They used Copilot to look at recent Maccabi Tel Aviv European games for evidence of crowd trouble or not.
Right.
And they found, well, I say they found, Copilot found a game that West Ham played against Maccabi Tel Aviv.
How did West Ham do?
Well, the problem is the game
Jared Bowen score?
It did not happen. This game was hallucinated by AI and was used in an official police report. That's the problem.
This year, when people talk about the disconnect between police and football fans in this country, here is evidence. You would have thought in the whole Birmingham, or what is it, the Midlands Police Department?
Yeah. West Midlands Police. Yeah.
West Midlands Police, to be one guy that might have a passing interest in football and might say, hey, I don't remember West Ham playing them.
There's got to be a West Ham fan in there. I just went, wait, what?
More likely a West Ham fan than a Maccabi Tel Aviv fan.
Yeah.
But anyway, Sam, this brings us to an end. Many big ups on your debut, on your home debut. Unlike Shea Lacey, you did not get sent off, which is a start. Jules is going to be back on Monday. There is so much to talk about from this upcoming weekend. So until then, love the game, love your neighbor, love yourself.